So this book, which is Managing Complexity with and Covid-19, was released on July 4th, 2022, and we are happy to have the grand book release in the IIHM Global Campus on the 10th of July, 2022.
And very good evening to all the delegates, guests, ladies and gentlemen, in this absolutely fantastic launch, global launch of this very, very interesting literature, the book that we have all been waiting for months for the launch, Managing Complexities in COVID-19. I'm so happy that it's been happening at the IIHM. So on behalf of all of my team members and my personal behalf, thank you very much for coming and, as she was saying, celebrating the launch of this book, the global launch. And we are absolutely proud to be a part of this launch. We at IIHM always try to become the best hospitality educators in the world. And the first step is to show hospitality ourselves. So we always are the front runner in hospitality, and this is one more opportunity for us to show our love and hospitality to all of you.
I'm sure launching of this new book on a life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is not only informative from different angles of global perspective, but provocative. This may be the stepping stone how to adjust to the environment, what is the policy or policymaker do about the environment. It gives enough clue to policymakers to reorient in terms of economic business and manpower. I am confident we will win the war in spite of heavy odds by learning and applying in time based on scientific research.
Dr. Mukherjee, it's really eye-opening. There are a lot of things that the reason for this book, once again, was the commonality of solution, not the diversity of ideas. And he mentioned unity among diversity or unity in diversity, which has shown in the COVID pandemic more than anything else I can think of. So without further ado, I will be inviting the panel members.
The huge disinformation, misinformation campaign that has made the application of science very difficult. The whole vaccination, as Professor Mukherjee mentioned, we have a very, very effective vaccine. And as you know, the vaccine strategies in India have far been superior to pretty much anywhere else in the world, including the US. Inequality, again, people who could not stay at home, people who could not work from home got the brunt of the disease. People who don't have access to healthcare got the brunt of the disease. And we've published here in the US that people who don't have insurance, people who don't have access to healthcare were the ones who were disproportionately admitted to the hospitals and disproportionately died. And hopefully this is a wake-up call for public health and for institutions in general, that if you don't take care of the lowest rate of society, the entire society gets affected, the city shuts down, and everyone suffers.
So I'd say the zero-based culture at the moment suggests that business schools must look at what their purpose is, what they're trying to do, particularly in the context of what at least two people have said about inclusion. We have to, in business schools, recognize our purpose is to bring people into the mainstream of economic growth and of public health.
I'll start with a simple joke which I learned during the COVID times, is that who changed the digital transformation of India? Is it Oracle? Is it IBM? It is data. What? The fun is that the transformation of human behavior change is by mainly COVID. School used to ban mobile phone. If the kids bring a mobile phone, they used to ban, they used to call their parents. Right now, what is happening during the COVID, we saw the mobile phone is running the school. So things change drastically.
Artist Partha Bhattacharjee, who has made this beautiful painting, and which represents, in some sense, the entire description of what this book is all about.
সিম্বল হিসেবে আমি ছবিটাকে ইউজ করেছি। পৃথিবীর সমস্যা বলে আমি টোটাল ব্যাপারটাকে একটা সার্কেল ফর্মে করেছি। যা কিছু দেখবেন সেখানে কিন্তু এখানে কিন্তু সব সার্কেল ফর্মে আছে। সার্কেল ফর্মের দুটো অর্থ আছে। একটা বিন্দুকে আমরা পাওয়ার ভাবি, যে পাওয়ারটা একটা ডট, একটা বিন্দু। দু রকমের পাওয়ার আছে, একটা সমাজকে ধ্বংস করার ডট, একটা সমাজকে তৈরি করার ডট। কোভিডের যে ভাইরাসটা বিভিন্ন সায়েন্টিস্টরা আমাদের দেখিয়েছেন, তো সেখানেও কিন্তু সেটা একটা ডট, সেটা সার্কেল ফর্মে। তো সেই ডট সমাজকে, আমাদের পৃথিবীকে ধ্বংস করার চেষ্টা করছে। আর একটা ডট আমাদের পৃথিবী, যেখানে আমি মানে মানুষকে ঘিরে ধরেছে পৃথিবীটাকে, ছবি মানে বইয়ের কভারে যেটা আমি দেখাবার চেষ্টা করেছি, সেটাও একটা ডট। সেই ডটটা বৃহৎ, আর কোভিডের ডটটা এত ক্ষুদ্র যে আমরা চোখে দেখতে পাই না।
One of the things that Partula, or Beloved Partula Bhattacharya mentioned is that you can see the circle form right away. So you can see the viruses, which are very simple forms. I might not even call it forms of life because they don't have an existence of their own as far as we know so far. They are obligately parasitic. So to live, to recreate, to procreate, they have to rely on a living organism. So that is why we can see the very simple RNA life form, which is the virus which is called COVID-19, which causes the pandemic that we are aware of. But when you see that this circle form extends to a much bigger circle form, and this circle form represents the human action, what exactly people did in their own walks of life. You have lawyers, you have doctors, you have emergency room service technicians and scientists, besides academics, essential workers who all work together to address this pandemic. Work did not really stop while we were under this huge existential threat in life. You can see the masks, which has become ubiquitous. These are surgical masks that, of course, are used for us to prevent transmission of the virus. It also shows how human beings care about each other. They might actually protect others more by wearing the mask than themselves. So this is indeed very important and very symbolic.
Also the biblical saying, every man is his brother's keeping. So in those sense, there is an interdependence that globalization has brought about, and an interdependence that makes it obligatory on all of us to consider all aspects of the disease as it occurs. And that's not the only lesson to come out, emerge from this time of sickness and suffering and happily survival.
So I would tell you that in terms of challenges were like from all sides. So what we say is, to run any system, you require staff, system, source, and space. And in pandemic, we had scarcity of all. So people thought that healthcare workers cannot fall sick, and if they were falling sick, they would say, "Oh, the hospital might not have good infection control protocols, and that's the reason their own staff are falling sick." Right? So in the city, there were like a couple of hospitals which were shut down because so many people, so many staff were sick. But the matter of fact is, see, pandemic is not hospital-based; it's there all across the globe, right? And we live like human beings. So once you step out of the hospital, there is a probability that you would acquire.
So it must be very interesting to go through the book. Dr. Mukherjee gave us some insight about how the Spanish flu in 1918 had devastated, and probably 50 million victims were there. We are only at 10%, but yet a huge number, considering the advancement of the science that has taken place. But then we have grown in numbers, and particularly in cities, our density of population is definitely a matter of concern. There are a couple of good contributions that we have seen. People in the rural area as well as urban area today realize the importance of forestry and vegetation.
The data was actually collected from the World of Data issued by Oxford University, and these are all countries. The statistics of all countries where the infection counts, the hospitalization, and unfortunately the mortality counts were going up and down, and it was fluctuating. It almost looks like a heartbeat but it is not. It is really coming from the data. And you have doctors thinking, looking at the data, how to treat, how to take care of, how to heal someone from the pandemic. It is indeed a very challenging and difficult proposition they had, because there was no proven vaccine in the early stage, as well as therapeutics that we are not sure of as yet. So of course, it was amazing that scientists worked together with the doctors and other researchers to come up with effective vaccine that was deployed, in a record amount of time to go over the entire world. The other thing I wanted to mention is that hands also symbolizes as a reaction to the spike proteins that you see in the virus, and how those hands are preventing the virus from taking over our existence, our lives as well. So it is really symbolic to see that. But last but not the least, you can see the glimmer of hope, the candle that you have in the middle. You can call it burning the midnight oil as well, that we saw in a lot of cases, and that goes to the light, the light which is holding up as a glimmer of hope going to a sun of hopefulness, that you might say. The entire picture has these elements from light and darkness. So indeed, from darkness we can go towards light, and how things have actually progressed towards this sort of central dot that you can see out there. So those are the circles that artist Partha Bhattacharya talked about.
So we were functioning initially slightly physically, in the sense that some of the judges were required to come to the court, and largely it was an online process. So the moment that online process started in, we started taking benefit of the technology. We didn't have the entire judicial system in the state of West Bengal, didn't have the wherewithal or that kind of data, or even hardware. Software we could pick up, but the hardware was difficult to come by because of the lockdown. We didn't have that requisite infrastructure. We didn't have the requisite mindset also. The trained personnel were lacking. But nonetheless, we could cope. We reduced our exposure, footfall in the courts by putting in the virtual system. Lawyers could address us on the virtual platform. A litigant could appear personally through the virtual platform to us, could access us in that fashion.
I think what we learned really in the pandemic as a human race was the two H's. We learned humility. The second H we learned, I think we've heard about earlier this evening, was I think humaneness. We learned it's not enough to be human. It is important to be humane. And we had to help our neighbor.
This book is a time capsule. It's something that we should not forget. We should actually remember. And we tend to forget in India, particularly, within a few months, we will forget what happened. We forgot last year how terrible condition we were in. Well, we have to move ahead. That's why we need to forget, but we cannot forget the learning. So once again, a vote of thanks to all the several people who helped us to make this book happen. Whatever way they could, they approached people that they barely knew in some cases, and they all helped us to give this book a shape. This is just a beginning, not the end of it, because we have to start this conversation. The fact that we have Justice Boshak here and Dr. Mukherjee before, and of course Dr. Chatterjee here as well, and an eminent journalist, Ms. Dattaroy here as well, and as administrators and so on. So it's indeed something we love to have. Human beings love to communicate. And if you stop in our own silos, we have the problem getting better of us, rather than us getting better of the problem.
The title of this particular painting, as chosen by the painter, is Unity in Diversity. It symbolizes how we should work together to address a problem which is unseen, which is changing, and which is trying to propagate itself and destroy the way that we would have think of life.